Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Brad Lone Wolf, and today I'm going to be going through some of my climbing equipment for you. Um, Bearing in mind a lot of this is now quite old, so it will be scrapped at some point. Um, but it's interesting to look at nonetheless. You will hear a lot of clattering and banging as I pull stuff out the box. Um, but I'll show you what I've got and give you a brief idea of how I would use it. Um, a lot of this, like I say, a lot of this stuff is old, so most of it will be going. Um, a lot of it's been used quite extensively, so yeah. Um, so all the equipment I'm going to show you is for a type of climbing called lead climbing, and that is where you basically start at the bottom. You wedge this stuff into cracks as you go up, and then clip your rope through it. So the rope basically follows you up, and as you can imagine, if you fall, you've got to fall a certain distance before the equipment hopefully stops you from falling. Now, the vast majority of this equipment hasn't taken a fall, but obviously with its age and everything, you do need to replace this equipment on basis. So that's enough of a preamble waffle. Let's get on with it. We'll start with some basic stuff and we'll move up. So in there, carabiners. Lots and lots and lots of carabiners. Like I say, the majority of these are old now, but these are screw gate carabiners because they have a screw piece that you screw backwards and forwards to lock it into place. And I'm not going to go into detail about how to use these, but that's the gate. Squeeze it to open it, and then you spin it to lock it. Most of these should be locked into place just out of habit, really. You will find the occasional one that isn't locked into place. You never need to do it up more than finger tight. But that's carabiners. There are a few different shapes, and I'll show you some of them in a minute. These are D-carabiners, D-shaped carabiners, basically because they look like capital D. Look like a capital D. You also get carabiners known as HMSs or pear shapes, and they look like a pear. Now again, I've got several of these. I've just taken that one off of there, which is why it's unlocked. These are for a specific application. They are for use with, and I've probably left these on my harness. In fact, there we go. They're for use primarily with belay devices. Because of the wider space at the top, means the rope is less likely to get jammed. You can use the belay devices with a D-shaped carabiner. You can use it with one of these, but it really isn't recommended. Try and use it, if you can, with a pear shape or an HMS. The other application for an HMS is for a specific knot known as the Italian hitch. I'm just going to tie one of those up. Well, I say tie, it's a hitch. that's an Italian hitch. It is used as a form of emergency belay. It's also used, or I tend to use it as well, or I have used it in the past, when I've been belaying from the top of a rock. Now the idea of this is that, now this is just a piece of rope that I used to practice knot tying with. The idea of this is that as somebody's coming up, you're actually able to hold them if they fall. Like I say, it's an emergency belay, but it does wear out the rope because obviously friction on the rope is going to start heating it up and potentially melting it. But that was the primary use of one of these, and because of its use with the Italian hitch, it's basically crossed over to being used with a belay device. Right, what's next? Snapgate pinas. As we're talking about carabiners, Snapgate carabiners, and again, loads and loads and loads of them. These ones, they don't have a gate. They are just literally held in place by spring pressure. Again, you get two different varieties. You actually get several different varieties. These are the three main types though. Okay, I probably can't, well, you probably see the difference, but you probably wouldn't know the difference in them. So that's a wire gate carabiner, or wire gate snapgate. That's a solid gate with the straight gate. That's a bent gate carabiner, or bent gate snapgate. For obvious reasons, they've got those names. Okay, now in terms of age, the those two are older. Their design's been about for a lot longer. The wire gates are relatively new on the scene. I say relatively; they've been around for quite a while, but they are still relatively new compared to the older solid gates. Why have we swapped from these to those? A couple of reasons. These are a lot lighter than these. Less metal, so obviously less weight. Different design. If you look at these, they're quite rounded. Or if you look at those, you can see the shape. They've actually changed the shape and therefore reduced the weight on them. I say these are also safer. They are safer technically. Now, when you look at one of these, you think, well, that's a solid piece of metal as opposed to a small piece of wire. Psychologically, these are safer. Psychologically, because of that big piece of metal there. But when these are banging around, if they end up being banged around, they actually open up slightly. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to hear this, but that click is actually the gate doing that. And you don't really want that when you've got a rope in place. So, like I say, solid gates, although they are psychologically safer because your brain sees this big piece of metal and thinks, ooh, yeah, that's got to be safer than that. Like I say, that opens up when it's been when it's been banged. Now, it doesn't open up a huge amount. It probably only opens up that much. But that's potentially enough for a rope to dynamically open the gate. Looking at one of these, if you listen closely, again, I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this. Nothing. So this actually doesn't open as much. Big difference there. So that is Snapgate carabiners, and again, loads of these. And again, probably all going to be scrapped because they are quite old now. Okay. Relay devices. Might as well, as I've got them in my hand. Okay, so number of belay devices here. So we've got the VC Pro, a couple of different forms of ATCs, air traffic controllers, get rid of that, a couple of different forms of ATCs. As you can see, they're actually quite scratched up. One of the most used pieces of equipment I've got. There is a difference between these two. They work in the same way, but the difference is that it's a solid piece of aluminium, so it doesn't squeeze. Just makes it slightly heavier. It's slightly heavier. That has got a wire in it. Now, in terms of safety, these don't really matter. All they're for is to stop your belay device from walking up the rope and getting away from you. That's all it's for. Now, this funky looking piece of equipment is a reverso. Again, this is quite old. I think we're on the version 3 or 4 of this now. But the reverso is not only a belay device, it's also an ascending device. You can actually set this up and walk and use it to haul yourself up a rope if you need to. Okay, now you may be thinking, well, if they all do the same job, why are there so many different types? Why the reverso and the ATCs and things like that? I have got somewhere in here as well. In fact, there they are. Got figure of 8, 2 figure of 8s. Okay, now you can, not really a good idea, but you can actually use these as a belay device in a push, and I have used one in a push, but they are designed primarily for abseiling. Why so many different types? They actually offer different variations, or different degrees of hold. So some hold better than others. So basically, depending on how much you want to actually have control over the rope, will depend on the belay device. Most people, to be fair, end up either using one of these or one of these. As you can see with the what's that, VC, it's actually got a diagram of what you should use, and those bits there, they actually offer a better grip on the rope. Some people don't use it. Some people don't actually like these, and they actually use it in a way that they don't have to use the rope itself. Sorry, they don't have to use the grips. Personal preference, of course. That's the belay devices covered. Carabiners covered. Different types of carabiners. What we're going to be moving on to now is the bits of metal that you wedge into the rock face. Some of these have got different names for similar things. It's a copyright thing more than anything else, or a trademark thing. We'll do these ones first. So I've got them all out. Looks like I have. Yep, looks like I have. Okay, so these are known as hexes. They are, well, you can see they range from little tiny ones. What's the smallest one? Little tiny ones like that. You can actually get smaller than that. All the way through to something like that. And you can see by the size, with my hand, the size of these things. Now these are known, these are sometimes called seagull killers. You can actually swing them pretty hard. To be honest, if you got something like that, you might as well wedge your foot in, unless you need to protect yourself. But these can be used either in the vertical configuration, so you wedge it. You got your crack, you wedge it in like that. That protects you as you go up, or like that. They are actually, I don't know if you can see, they actually spread out slightly at the top there, and obviously they spread like that as well. Now it's a similar shape going all the way through the size. So there's the smallest one. So you can see how small that one is. Same shape though. Okay. Then you've already seen this one. There's that one. Same shape. Does the same thing. Some of these have got cords on them. Rope on them. Some have got wire on them. So you can see that one's quite old. That's a size 8, Wild Country size 8, and they call them the Hexcentrics. Slightly different shape there. That is mainly to offer a camming surface. So if you can imagine, you put this in the right way. If you fall, the idea is that the hex itself actually cams out, or cams and pushes itself a bit further into the rock. Offers you a bit more protection. These still work the same. They just don't cam. That's the only difference. That's hexes. Move on to probably everybody when they first start climbing, or first start getting into lead climbing. The first pieces of equipment they will buy are these. Essentially, because the climbing companies have their own different designs, or say different designs, they're different ideas on what the proper sizing is. You can more or less climb on by just these. These are rocks or nuts, depending on which company they come from. Some are coloured, some are not. The majority of them have wire. Some have cord. They are better with wire, of course. So the ones on the left here, the ones that are coloured, these are Wild Country. What are they? Wild Country or DMM? Yeah, the Wild Country, those ones. Wild Country and DMM actually use the same colours for throughout the range, but there is a size difference, and I'll show you that right now. The ones on the right, they are from various different companies, but they're ideal in that I can actually show you what I mean by different companies have different ideas when it comes to sizes. So, should be a Wild Country, yeah, Rock 9. Okay, so even within the same company, they actually they've got different sizes. Okay, so both of the rocks that you're about to see, they're both actually Wild Country. Okay, so these are both Wild Country rocks. You can actually see it there. Let's see if I can get it on camera there. Yeah, Wild Country. If you look, they're both size 9. But now look at the shape. Yeah, so the older Wild Country, this one, is a completely different shape to this one. Okay, so, and it's, I mean, they're similar size on the width, but in terms of the size, they are different. And again, you can wedge your rocks in either that way or that way to protect yourself as you go up. Now, again, depending on which company you use, will depend on the size that they will go up to. So again, using what I have as an example, the biggest rock I've got is this one. It's Wild Country size 14. Now some companies would class that as a size 6 or a size 7. Depends again entirely on the company. Now, as you can see with the newer equipment, there is that lovely camming surface again. So if you wedge it in right, and you fall, generally if you wedge it in this direction and fall, the camming action, or the curve of the rock will actually cam the equipment in a lot further. We've got quite a few of them as well, as you can see, nicely coloured all the way through. Come on to them in a second. Right, next up now I don't like the next piece of equipment. They are good, they do work, they wouldn't be on the market if they didn't work, but I just personally don't like them. I don't feel comfortable using them, and they are these. Now these particular ones, they are Friends. They are actually called Friends. That's what they're known as. It's Friends. These particular ones are Wild Country. So for those of you that are familiar with the climbing equipment, in this case, it is the correct terminology. They are known as Friends. That's the trademarked name of them. That's the trademark name of them. Everybody else calls them, or has to call them, cams. Now the way they work, let's just take that off the carabiner here. The way they work is they're designed primarily for vertical cracks, and you can get them. Where's that hex? You can get friends that are wider than that. I've seen them. I've wanted one for ages just so I can have one, but they top out at least £100. And for something that I'm probably not going to use, yeah, it's a lot of money for that. But the way they work is you have a bar here, and you pull on the bar, pulls the cams in, you wedge it into the crack, and then release it. There is a certain point that you can't go beyond, because once you've gone beyond that certain point, it offers absolutely no protection. Secondly, there's a certain point that you can get to that you can't go beyond in that direction, because you just can't get it out the crack. And there's quite a few climbs up and down the country that climbers have had to leave their cams in or their friends in because they just literally haven't been able to pull them out. And like I say, as with, I've only got 3, just because I can't get my head around trusting them. I just can't. But I know there's nothing wrong with them, and I know they wouldn't be on the market if they didn't work. But you can get friends that are that size, all the way through to friends, like I say, that are bigger than my Seagull Killer here. So that's friends. Come on to slings next. Now slings have evolved throughout the years, and there's a variety of slings that you can get here, all in various different lengths. The most common one that I've got is actually this one, 4-foot sling. So, and all they were used for wrapping around trees and extending out quick draws if you needed them. As I say, these are old now. These are probably not much younger than me. Now, the reason I keep hold of them is because these ones in particular, is because they are good for organising equipment. So, for example, if I need to, or not necessarily organising equipment, but if after I've climbed and we need to get away from the top of the rock for whatever reason, I can quickly unload this, untie this, throw all my equipment on there, and then walk away from the top of the climb. So that's why I have those, and that's why I still use them. This one's made out of a slightly different material. It's basically essentially a flattened rope. So it has a different strength, different dynamic to it. But that's that one. I think that one's only a 2-footer. Yeah, it's only a 2-footer. But again, I will be getting rid of that one just because it's got to be at least 10 years old now. Again, another nylon sling. Slightly younger, but still quite old. This one, I'll probably be keeping hold of for a little while. This one is huge. I'm not joking. It is absolutely massive, this one. You can set up safety at the top of a climb using just slings or just a sling, and that is what you would use that for. I'm not going to use it for real, but I will use it to practice, because there's certain skills that I like to keep practicing, just to keep my eye and my head and everything else in mind, and that is one of them. Now, you might be thinking, well, it's all well and good wedging these things into the rocks, but what about the rope? What about the rope when you've only got a loop at the end? What do? Take the rope off and thread it through? No. What you do is you use one of these. Now, these are known as quick draws or extenders. Personally, I call these ones quick draws. And if I ever needed to extend something, I would take my quick draw, put a sling, in this case it's the 2-foot sling, put the sling through, and then take, in this case, the silver carabiner out. And as you can see, I just extended my quick draw by 2 feet. It's not often that I have to do that, but when I do, I do. So what you've got is you have your rock, in this case, wedged into the rock face, and then on this loop you would attach your quick draw like so, and then in the red carabiner you would thread your rope through. Okay, and that's how you attach yourself, or attach the rope to the rock face. That's slightly out of shot. And that's how you attach your rope to the rock face, and therefore to yourself. Now, when you've got a second person coming up behind you, what they tend to do is they obviously have to take the equipment out the rock face. I always recommend, or I've always said to my seconds, climbers,